When's this going to come up?
Do we know anything about Mark Tolbert?
Geez, I haven't heard from him. I thought he was going to be here.
No, she said he's supposed to be here.
He's supposed to be here? I'll give him a minute.
There he is. Hi, Mark. Hey.
Morning.
Oh, you're right on time.
Good morning. Call the meeting to order. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Security Guard Christopher Havener will be leading our pledge. And for everybody here, Officer Havener was involved in an incident in front of the police department involving an individual who was ultimately determined to be suicidal. And Officer Havener was able to communicate, aid, and assist, and get treatment for that individual and potentially save his life. So we just wanted to recognize that, and again, it is a testament that this is an all-hands-on-deck operation we're running. So for everybody out there, no matter what role you fill in our organization, you matter. So Officer Havener, we appreciate it very much. So if you'd please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Chaplain Archie will be performing the invocation.
All right, as many of you know, normally I like to give a little explanation because I don't believe we can do an invocation if I'm the only one speaking and know what I'm talking about and you guys are just listening. So hopefully this puts us on the same page. I grew up playing basketball, street ball, and it was just pickup ball. When I got to high school, we started playing organized ball. When we started playing organized ball, the coach prepared me for everything on the court that you can imagine, for the short plays, the long plays, everything else. What I wasn't prepared for was the audience. When I got on the court, all of a sudden, everybody in the audience starts telling me how to do the job that the coach had trained me to do. And all that noise started getting in the way of my focus. And so what I was prepared to do started becoming distracted by all the stuff that was happening around. And then it didn't end there. I went to school. And when I got to school, everybody else was consistently telling me what to do. So about the third game, I got out on the court, and I started having all those voices in my head. And I did not reflect the coaching and the training that I had actually been to in order to make me professional on the court. And then my coach, Coach Madison, who recently passed away, pulled me over and said, listen, you are the most qualified person in that moment. Nobody else has been through the training that you've been through. They're on the outside observing you, and what you're doing is you're allowing all of that stuff to distract you from what you have been trained to do while you're listening to a whole bunch of people who have never been in your shoes. To me, that reflects what a lot of our officers are dealing with today, out there on the streets, the social media, the professional media, and all the rhetoric of a lot of people who are telling us how to do the job when they've never been in those circumstances. And so my prayer is today is that each one of us, while we're out there on the streets, every officer would remember their training, remember the voice of their coach, remember that at that moment, they are the most qualified person in those critical moments to do the job. Let's pray. We thank you so much that we can call on a God that looks over us. And in those critical moments, we have a lot of officers who are facing those moments on a regular basis, but also have the static of the public and the social media and all the other folks saying, contradicting what we have learned in practice and what we are prepared to do. So we ask that you would give us a single focus in that moment, that every officer, when they stand there, they would stand there without distraction, with solid focus, and a passion to do the job that they've been trained to do so that our society will benefit from the enforcement and the protection that is offered by this department. Amen.
Awards and commendations.
Do this every damn time.
Our first awards this morning: Meritorious Service Award, Captain Stephanie Price; Special Unit Citation, Captain Stephanie Price, Sergeant Ward Smith; Officers Mark Fogel, Anne Marie Herrera, and Rita Olson Stewicki; and Certificates of Appreciation, Jen Brummett, Kim Dyer, Doug Guillen, Andrea Hawk, Mickey Keeling, Teresa Leinhop, and Charles Shields. Being able to quickly treat and stabilize a patient in the field is an important responsibility of an officer. Having the training to treat traumatic injuries and knowing the tourniquet usage is key. In 2015, members of the Firearms Training and Tactics Section developed a program to teach traumatic first aid, specifically gunshot wounds and tourniquet usage. Recognizing that many individual officers had already purchased their own first aid kits, the training was designed to be instructive and beneficial to all members, regardless of the brand of kit. However, to put this training into place for department members, equipment needed to be purchased, but the required kits were very costly and were not a budgeted item. Captain Stephanie Price was a vital contributor during both the development and implementation phases, and thanks to her nursing degree, was able to provide advice and expertise. She extensively researched funding sources for the purchase of equipment. In early 2017, the training unit became aware of the Trauma Services Unit at Truman Medical Center, was interested in discussing a Stop the Bleed program, which would provide training and equipment to first responders in the Kansas City area. Captain Price met with the team at TMC and was able to convince them to bring the program to KCPD. The TMC board moved quickly to vote and approved the necessary funding. A second critical part of the program involved training members in the Stop the Bleed program. Because the program is advanced, training unit instructors who did not already have advanced trauma first aid training would need additional training. Captain Price conducted extensive research and was able to connect with the Midwest Counter-Drug Training Center, MCTC, securing multiple training sessions for over 40 department members at no cost. She also contacted the Patrol Bureau, discussed the benefits of training, secured approval to proceed, and arranged to bring the training to participants at each division station, lessening potential time lost. To date, more than 800 members have received equipment and have received the training, which is now part of recruit curriculum. Because of Captain Price's initiative, members now have equipment and training that will allow them to address life-threatening injuries to citizens and department members. She accomplished this with nearly zero cost to the department and developed an important partnership with a well-respected healthcare provider. Lives have already been saved with the implementation of this program, and it has improved citizens' perception of the department. This specialized training and equipment has since been documented and has become department standard, which will help ensure reduced potential for misapplication. For her ongoing leadership and dedication to providing cutting-edge training to department members, Chief Richard Smith, along with the Board of Police Commissioners, is pleased to present the Meritorious Service Award to Captain Stephanie Price, and for the design and implementation of the Stop the Bleed training, Chief Richard Smith, along with the Board of Police Commissioners, is pleased to present the Special Unit Citation to Captain Stephanie Price, Sergeant Ward Smith, and Officers Mark Fogel, Anne Marie Herrera, and Rita Olson Stewicki. And for their outstanding assistance to the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, Chief Richard Smith, along with the Board of Police Commissioners, is pleased to present certificates of appreciation to Jen Brummett, Kim Dyer, Doug Guillen, Andrea Hawk, Mickey Keeling, Teresa Leinhop, and Charles Shields. Our next award, Life Saving Award, Detective David DeLamar. Early intervention CPR can save lives, and for Detective David DeLamar, quick action and training prove this point right. On June 5, 2018, at approximately 7:30 p.m., Detective DeLamar was working off-duty at the downtown Cosentino's located on East 13th Street. While he was there, customers flagged him down, directing him to a medical emergency at the front of the store. A gentleman, Matt Benish, had collapsed, was unresponsive, not breathing, and quickly turning blue. Detective DeLamar immediately notified dispatch, requesting fire to respond, and began CPR on Mr. Benish. When fire arrived and took over for Detective DeLamar, they were able to shock Mr. Benish, and several minutes later, he regained consciousness. The firefighters who were on scene indicated that Detective DeLamar's quick actions saved Mr. Benish's life, a fact also confirmed by doctors at Truman Medical Center. For commendable life-sustaining actions in a life-or-death situation, Chief Richard Smith, along with the Board of Police Commissioners, is pleased to present the Life Saving Award to Detective David DeLamar. Our final award, Meritorious Service Award, Administrative Assistant, Virginia Jenny Kerr. Superior work ethic, exceptional problem-solving skills, and unwavering dedication to the KCPD. These words accurately describe Administrative Assistant Jenny Kerr since joining the department in 1991. Civilian Kerr's assignments include Metro Patrol on all 3 watches, the K-9 Unit, Helicopter Unit, Communications Unit, Property and Evidence Section, and the Violent Crimes Division. She recently transferred to the North Patrol Division to fill the vacant Administrative Assistant position. During her time within the Special Operations Division, Civilian Kerr was asked to assume the duties of Administrative Assistant. Despite no time for training, she performed admirably and showed a great attitude about her opportunity. While assigned to the Property and Evidence Section, she created a system to consolidate and simplify the process to keep track of and notify owners and claimants of property when necessary. In April of 2007, Civilian Kerr transferred to the Violent Crimes Division to take on new responsibilities. As expected, she rose to the occasion and demonstrated excellent typing and organizational skills. Civilian Kerr always showed outstanding listening and communication skills with victims, witnesses, and suspects. She showed proficiency even during volatile and emotional situations. Civilian Kerr assumed call-out duties, often responding for shooting events that required clerical staff for statements. While in the Violent Crimes Division, the technology used by typists changed to a new digital transcription system. There was no formal training, and it became an on-the-job training situation. Along with coworkers, Civilian Kerr studied the instructions, completed online tutorials, and quickly became proficient with the system. She proactively became a trainer in the unit to help others learn the new system. Prior to transferring to North Patrol, Civilian Kerr took on the major project of physically moving, scanning, and indexing hundreds of files from one location to another. She worked diligently on this project and completed the majority of the work before her transfer. Throughout her various assignments, Civilian Kerr's conduct has been consistently positive and professional. She truly enjoys helping others. She is compassionate, kind, and always willing to go the extra mile for everyone. For her exemplary, continuous, and long-term professionalism, Chief Richard Smith, along with the Board of Police Commissioners, is pleased to present the Meritorious Service Award to Administrative Assistant Jenny Kerr.
Thank you, sir. How are you, sir? Great, thank you.
How are you?
Good to see you.
How are you?
It's yes, it's always exciting. got academies in. We got a Citizens Police Academy in.
We lost a group. Looked at the last.
Yeah.
Number.
Here, 63rd, 163rd.
What happened?
Well, you know, these are coming back.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's right. There are 4 of them that are coming back.
Yeah. It's injuries, and the other ones we had, you know, one of them I think was it's not for me. Then we had because we got all these are injuries, and then the other ones, a lot of times when you see the performance ones, they've gone outside our post boundaries. Like you can't fail 2 tests. Like if you fail the first one, you can't fail your remedial test, or there's certain firearms criteria that don't give us a lot of latitude. And then on the other ones, sometimes it's just that they're just, you know, they're failing their police integrated exercise. It's not for them. And, you know, but a lot of it's interesting. You know, one of the things we're working on, you know, now they're doing, and I'll let you take it, they're really starting to work with them ahead of time, because what happens is they don't show up physically prepared. And so they're trying to get in shape while they're trying to execute. You can't do both. Or what happens is, you know, you get hurt. And but they'll be cycling back around. I think we got 5 or 6 in this October class that'll be what we call recycling. So, you know.
I knew after law school I was going to have an academy.
Right. You bet. That's what we're doing. So in fact, I had a gal that hasn't even applied yet, and I brought her up to the academy the other day, and she sat down and met with Craig Hans. She has a workout program that's geared toward what you're doing, and I think we can mitigate about 75% of these. So, it's all good. Everything good with you? Awesome. Hi, David. How are you? Thank you. Oh, hey. How are you? Good. Good to see you. We had a good course.
She never has to say anything.
How's the family? Good. How's
Well, I can't even point to that. That's not true.
Not so much.
There has been some.
I don't know if the chief said anything. Now listen, because has nothing to do with you. But it's always around. Maybe I listen a little extra, but I'm always laughing with you guys. And then they're so backed up. If they're not doing that, they're not wrong.
Yeah, I'm glad I came in really fast.
That should be yours. I apologize. I've been doing because he asked me a question about training.
No, that's nice, isn't it? We don't have quite enough of that all the time. Yeah, no kidding.
Ready? He'll go down there at night, try to get some coffee, and then go down there and try to just get some studying in. But he's just so exhausted. I feel so bad for him. So.
It's hard. People don't realize what a grind it is.
Next on the agenda, Councilwoman Kennedy, I believe, is first up.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
First, I'd like to start by welcoming Commissioner Shuren back.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Absolutely. I wanted to just take a moment to go over just a few things. Last week, I believe it was, there was a lot of discussion. I got a lot of calls, a lot of messages via social media about a video that had emerged about an incident in Westport. And just curious, did any of you guys get any calls about that, or anyone make any inquiry?
No, I'm aware of your posting and commentary, but I didn't receive anything individually unless someone else did.
Had any of you guys made any inquiry to find out more information about what happened, or?
Yes.
Okay. What?
Okay, well, this isn't going to be question and answer of me.
No, I just wanted to, I
Yeah.
just want to get a better sense of where we were to determine how much I talked about today.
Oh.
So obviously you are aware of it, but maybe any updates, additional updates other than the communication that was sent out?
No, I don't. I think we're in good shape, so I think you're free to say whatever you want to say about it.
Well, and I think that's probably where I will start at, is as far as when these issues come up, who gets the inquiries. As a council person, I mean, they come to me first, and probably a lot of my colleagues as well, with concerns about what's happening. And I'm very fortunate the chief makes himself available, and I called him, and he, said he'd do his due diligence, and he did just that. And I'm very thankful for his response, him and Doug Niemeyer, of their willingness to get involved, to begin to delve into the issue. I believe the best thing that came out of that is that there was another video that emerged from another, I think, cell phone that showed a different vantage point. And, we're all very happy that that happened, because from the initial video, I couldn't imagine any justifiable reason that occurred, what appeared to be a striking towards a woman that was, already in a situation where officer had her. And even when the woman who recorded the video from across the street, the other angle, had made comment and said it seemed excessive. And so what we're dealing with a lot of times are appearances. Brad Lemon made a very good comment in one of his statements where he said, it's enforcement and it's not always pretty, and that is very true. The question always comes in is our approach to enforcement adding to our cause or hindering our cause? Because this department has spent a lot of time and money invested in building community support and relationships and goodwill. And then what came from that video had the potential to erode a lot of that. And, my objective is to make sure that we're doing everything we can every step of the way to address public concerns about how public safety is addressed, but more importantly, making sure that we're being responsive. And so the feedback I received about it was that they were able to identify who the officer was and get a statement from the officer, and that based on the officer's story of what happened at the time, the technique was an approved technique to be used. And I don't have anything to debate about that. My concern moves down the line to, if an investigation occurs, you usually get more than one side of the story and talk to some witnesses to better gain understanding about what happened. But for that other video showing up to justify the officer's position, it really created a situation where what really happened. I have been a firm supporter of body cameras, and I think this incident goes to the point of why it's so necessary, because there were a number of social justice groups that were furious about it. And the dialogue via social media was not short of outrage, which really kind of set the tone for how my response was drafted when I initially posted it. But I think the opportunity here is for us to be committed to the use of body cameras, because that officer, while they were justified in this instance, but for that other video coming out, there was this question of what really happened. And so I'm glad that did emerge to indemnify him, so to speak. But I think it's important for us to look at our processes and how we vet through that. You guys are vested stakeholders in what happens with the police department as the board, but you guys don't always get the pressure and the urgency from the constituents, from the residents of Kansas City that are being impacted by our decisions. And that's just by nature of how this process works. But I want to convey that to you all because perceptions do become reality. And the second video did not circulate as quickly as the first video. And then two, there are still some concerns. You know, somebody asked me like, well, why didn't the girl come forward? I have no reason to know why she did or didn't. But the Office of Citizens Complaints still continue to serve to be a very effective tool in this process for residents to be able to go and express their concerns without fear of any repercussions. And not to say that was the case in this instance, but I talked to one of the reporters, and they didn't even know what the Office of Citizens Complaints even was. And so I think there's still an opportunity for us to continue to highlight their role and their function, that they are independent of the police department, and they are submit to this board their findings for recommendations. But you know, that situation definitely heightened my interest in how our processes are played out. And like I said, the chief and his staff immediately responded to the issue quickly and timely. But unfortunately, the second video didn't circulate. So it's not as clear other than the statement, you know, kind of how all these things played out. One thing that I still question, because in this day and time, everybody's got a camera, right? Everybody's recording at different instances. But what was happening in that situation where 2 or 3 different people pulled out their cell phones and started recording this instance? I think what we viewed was less than a 1-minute piece of it. So I don't know what happened before, what happened after, and my goal is not to Monday morning quarterback. But I do want to underscore that is the value of having those body cameras, because then we have a full picture of what the whole story is. And so when residents have concerns about how a situation is being handled, you know, we could wholeheartedly say it was handled according to our policy, so that there's not an appearance that we're taking anyone's side. We're just dealing with the facts as they are presented. So I know that Oakman has presented that the RFP is out. We should be getting some information about that soon. But I cannot reiterate how important it is for us to move forward on that action item to provide another level of public safety, not just for residents, but for officers as well. Because that officer, if he was doing his job and doing it right, he deserved to be indemnified. And thankfully, that other video showed up to provide that information.
Okay, the only thing I would say about it, Councilwoman Kennedy, is, you know, I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate the observations more broadly in terms of our responsibility in the community and the community's responsibility to us, and that partnership. I appreciate that greatly. As for the issues of body cameras, you know, obviously that's, you know, water we've been treading for a while. Mm-hmm. We are making movement on that. As I said publicly, we have crossed the Rubicon. I don't think there needs to be any more discussion or debate about good or bad on body cams. We're all on board. It's a matter of funding. It's a matter of logistics. It's a matter of law. You know, the issues of body camera, it's you know, the perspective that body cameras will provide that objective witness that we all want. That is one facet of body cameras. And perhaps here, that is the driving facet of body cameras. But there are other considerations for a department of our size and our breadth that has to be taken into account, in addition to other substantive issues. So from the vantage point of budget, it's a huge demand on our budget, not inconsequential. So that's something that we have to tackle and have been in communications on where are we going to come up with these millions of dollars that this is going to require of us, not whether we should do it. The storage, the logistics of storage. Storage has been an issue, continues to be an issue for us, just generally speaking, but specific to body cameras, that burden is many-fold, what we currently manage. We have to deal with that. Legally, we've got the issues of sunshine request and how we manage those on a day-to-day basis without overburdening and taxing an already fatigued system. We have investigative concerns of when you turn a camera off and when you turn a camera on. So if we have victims of domestic violence, for example, and we have officers on the scene who are investigating those cases and having conversations with victims who generally don't want to be on any kind of stage, certainly not at that moment, when they're discussing and dealing with those intimate details, how do we manage that as an investigative entity? how do we manage that in a way that maintains the integrity of the body camera system? So that we don't have people begin to question when we turn things on and when we turn things off. So in such an instance, it would not be to protect the officer from any act of misconduct, but rather to insulate and protect and encourage a victim of violence who might be otherwise unwilling to be cooperative. So I say all that not to debate the issue, because again, I have personally crossed the Rubicon on its due. But I say it to temper and balance the discussion so that we understand there are still things that need to be worked out. The second thing I would say, as it relates specifically to the incident in Westport that you are referencing, and I was aware of it, I was made aware of it. We have credit to Chief Smith, we have a very communicative relationship. My concern there is, as you note, perception can be reality, is what role we are all playing in the perception. So I would just encourage all of us to exercise some patience and let a process work itself out, an investigative process, an understanding process, before we jump too quickly to what happened based on an angle or a report. So I don't know, well, I'm not aware of at the top of my mind an instance where we as a police department have hidden from events. We try to be the type of department, certainly at the leadership level, that we will confront it for whatever it is, for better or for worse. I think we've demonstrated that. But this was an example of where the social media world in particular, but even the mainstream media world, in today's environment can make this seem like this. And that's a difficult thing to judge. So the level of concern there was a hard thing to judge. And are we contributing to that in a premature manner, or are we adding constructively to the discussion? I think when somebody like you, who is a voice of authority, I would just ask that we be conscious of that. I certainly try to be conscious of that as well when I'm at this podium. On the words that I say have meaning, they have import, they carry a level of significance to them, and so do yours. So the only thing I would say here is that there is a process by which we judge these things, and it is an accumulation of information. It is an effort not to react too quickly before all the information is assembled. And as you correctly note, and thank you for raising it, in this particular instance, once the body of that information declared itself, we saw where the officer had in fact done nothing wrong here. None of that to take away or rob from the point that body cameras can serve a constructive purpose. So anyway, that's my only reaction to what you said.
I appreciate your commentary. I would also add to the discussion, and we're talking about the fiscal obligation and what it takes to make this happen. The city of Kansas City spends millions of dollars in paying out of settlements where one person's version of the facts is different from the officer's version of the facts, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. I think at some point we need to be intentional about making that investment so we have that objective witness, as you called it, that video footage, because I never want to be in a situation where, we're questioning. We're not the arbiter of justice. That's not our role. And I will also acknowledge that I was a little premature because I was very offended by what I saw in that video. But I don't want us to be in a situation where we have a obligation to a resident because something happened unjustly or was perceived it was. And even in this instance, while the technique the officer used was an approved technique, I'm sure there's somebody somewhere that would argue that it was excessive and could easily, bring an excessive force claim, and which we have a bunch of them that frivolous and all, but they come. And so while it is a major expenditure, I do think as we evaluate it that we not evaluate it in a vacuum. We pay out a lot of money on the other side and litigation costs just to, because that's just the nature of how this stuff goes. And so I don't know what the data suggests as far as the department's ability to cut down on some of that. But I would imagine that there is some economic benefit to it that may offset some of the cost of the investment to get this set up and get going. And I understand we're not debating if we're going to do it. We're just trying to figure out how to pay for it. But in a global context, we're spending the money anyway. And I think that we get twofold if we invest it here. We get we provide a level of confidence to the officers
who are wrongly perceived, and we provide confidence to the residents that we're working really hard to build relationships with. And so I think it's one that's worthwhile, and I'll look forward to working with you guys to make sure we find the money for it.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Chief, I believe you're up for general discussion.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to start out with, I wish I had a more catchy name, but I'm going to call it our Citizens Participation Exercise that we had at the Academy. I talked about this with many of you, and Commissioner Tolbert was one of our participants, about coming up with a shoot, no-shoot exercise that we would run community members through, and at the conclusion of that, we would then set them in the classroom and explain our entire police shooting protocol and investigating. And that included inviting, we had prosecutors from civil rights, we had the U.S. Attorney's Office, we had Jackson County Prosecutor's Office representative, we had our HR representative, and about what happens after the post-shooting. It was very enlightening. I will tell you that we weren't halfway through the exercise, and most of the participants were like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Even as they prepared to go to the exercise, they told us how nervous they were, and we said, hey, it's just an exercise, everything's going to be fine. And but they really, really felt some of the pressures and the pressure of making that decision and when to make that decision. We thought we had a very successful day, a 4-hour block. Every single person that went through the exercise gave it rave reviews and asked to bring other people back, including our prosecutor's office asked if they could have participants in the exercise next time. So it's something we're starting. We see this as a reoccurring event. We're trying to get another one scheduled for October, so maybe every couple of months or every quarter we'll have it. We had about 12 people from varied backgrounds come through the exercise. We think this is a good way of having the citizens see our processes and to expose them to them so that they have confidence in them. Commissioner Tolbert, did you have anything you'd want to add?
It was a very in-depth and very enlightening process, and I told the chief that I could really see it being beneficial to the community to have more people go through it. Of course, they set me up, and I shot everybody, you know. but it was a great exercise.
Just you know, we set 2 exercises that we actually had video from of actual occurrences where we had video, and we showed the participants those exact videos after they went through the exercises so they could see the decisions that were made by the officers at that time that were really on scene. So it wasn't just some out of the blue exercise. We took it from the video that we had in stock so that we could have people see how actual officers handled those situations.
So I think that those are great exercises, and I appreciate you doing it. And Commissioner Tolbert, I appreciate your comments. And one of the things that it obviously seeks to achieve is to put people more in the shoes. Chaplain Archie talks about that from the outside, the people in the bleachers, so to speak, to put them on the court in a way that helps them communicate and understand the role of the officers and sort of the decision-making and the process that takes place all of a sudden. At the same time, in reflection of those comments, I think it's also important that, we as a department, and Councilwoman Kennedy, it goes to some of your comments, we also recognize our role on the court. We're not immune from criticism from the bleachers. That comes with it. That's part of the job. And it's a good part of the job, and it's a fortunate part of the job that we're held to account. So it does, at the same time, I want us to always remember that it goes both ways, that we want people to be accountable to us in terms of an understanding of what we go through, but at the same time, never forget that there are people in the bleachers who are watching us and who should be watching us. So it's a mutually important relationship.
And I think to both conversations, Commissioner, I think the goal of this department and the staff, when we talked about this, is I wanted people walking out of the room realizing this is a professional department. And no matter what the issue is that comes before us, we're going to address the issue. We're going to look at it, we're going to investigate it, and we're going to rendering some sort of ruling at the end of it. And we're not going to shy away from it. We're not going to bury it. We're not going to look at it. We're going to do what's right because it's the right thing, and that's how we build trust with this community. And thank God we have it. And on the other end of that, when our officers do a good job, and even if it doesn't look good, I'm going to stand in front of this board and say the officer's actions were within our policy, and that officer did a good job. So I agree, there's all kinds of places on the court, all different positions that we can all be in the court. So, but I think this was a really good touch with the community, and we're going to, my congratulations Academy staff for putting off a great day, very professional day, and I think our department really shined.
Well, exercises like that, and in addition to all the things that our FOP is so prolific at doing in our community, these are opportunities for dialogue, discussion, and communication and understanding between the department, the officers, and the community they serve. Simple as that. And it creates a healthy relationship of accountability and one of greater understanding. So I commend the program, and it's another instance where we're doing exactly what we should be doing. So thank you.
Yeah, one other order of business. Per our previous discussions, I bring in front of the board that the award issued to Officers William Thompson and Tamara Jones that was issued on August 26 of 2014 be rescinded, and I would like to put that up to the board for consideration.
And on that point, this is related to the Ryan Stokes matter. And Chief, just a little more on that in terms of our discussion being a focus on the process to ensure that the information that's contained in not just that award, but awards going forward. Is that something that you have been focused on?
Right, to make sure that the processes that we are capturing the facts, correctly. Sometimes there's many different sources in a story, and as the councilwoman said, there's different accounts, and we have to make sure that those are accurate, whether it be an award or an investigation.
Okay. And I think here, just for my fellow commissioners' understanding, is something that I have looked at personally, and information contained underlying that award was not accurate. It is my judgment, and Chief, correct me if you have a different judgment, that is not the on account of or the fault of the officers in any way. I think it was a process failure, which is, I think, what you are focused on to ensure that doesn't happen, because that's the integrity of that process is of utmost importance. But nevertheless, it doesn't change our responsibility to look at those when that issue arises. And on this occasion, the information underlying that award was not accurate. So you are asking for it to be rescinded. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So I would ask if there is a motion on the Chief's recommendation to rescind the award on the Stokes matter.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Recommendation passes.
That's all I have.
Public comments. Okay, seeing none. Approval of minutes. On tab B, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the August 14th, 2018 commission meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Wagner, second by Commissioner Tolbert. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Next is the August 23rd, 2018 special meeting. This was the meeting related to the approval on the vehicle purchase contract, again, held on the 23rd of August, 2018. Is there a motion for approval of those minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Tolbert. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shuren. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Sergeant Lemon. Morning.
Morning. First, I was
lucky to be asked and to go on a trip into Montgomery, Alabama, Selma, August 24th to the 26th. Urban League put together a very interesting group of people, kind of a cross-section of our city, but also some leaders. Deputy Chief Lanningham was there with us. Jackson County Prosecutor Gene Peter Baker, the presiding judge John Torrance, and a bunch of other community leaders. And we were able to get an opportunity to spend the first night together talking about some of our goals on this trip and things and about ourselves. And then the next morning we got together and we did a tour, a number of tours. I kind of wanted to go over where we went to and what they meant and kind of how it struck me a little bit. The first museum was called the Legacy Museum. It had to do with the beginnings of slavery, the mentality of slavery, and then continued on. The second half of it was the mass incarcerations that have happened over a lot of things. I think what bothered me the most was the things that I learned there that I didn't learn in school. That the education that was never provided to us growing up. I learned a lot of things about slavery and always understood it was the North versus the South because of slavery, and didn't realize that 60% of New York City owned slaves when the Civil War started. So it was more of the things that we don't know from school. And I was frustrated and angry leaving there. And we were asked to read a couple books. And although I haven't been able to finish the first book or the second book all the way through, the education piece that was attached to this was incredible. And I think a lot of my friends will tell you that I've tried to work through this. I write a lot. I blog a lot, and when I do, I generally refer to quick action. This time I can't. It's taken so much time to ingest what I've seen, what I've heard, what I've read, and try to understand why we weren't taught things like this when I was growing up, and why we didn't take the time to learn some of this as we got older. We went to a civil rights memorial center. Sounds like a pretty normal name, except for the other name that I think that's really truly associated. It's called the Lynching Museum. And the entire place was almost like coffins hanging from the ceiling. And it was a massive area. And when you got up to them, it doesn't talk about the number of, these weren't number of people that had been killed. There were numbers of counties that people had been killed in. So as you can imagine, there were some of those that had 15, 20, 25, 30 names on them, and it was as far as you could see. And it was, for my part, probably the quietest we were there, I think, and nobody really talked, and we just kind of walked around. And when we found the ones from Missouri, not quite as many as in Jackson County as you would imagine, considering the way the slave trade came through the river. But it still was devastating to see the number of names on each one of these. Next was the Rosa Parks Museum, which was pretty interesting. But I think what I'm going to talk a little bit more about is the Edmund Pettus Bridge. That's the bridge in March of 1965. They had a name for it. After that, it was called Bloody Sunday. It was the 600 parishioners and individuals that were doing a peaceful march because of the Civil Rights Act had passed in 1964, and still in Alabama, black residents weren't allowed to vote. So Martin Luther King and John Lewis had put this together, and they were coming across this bridge. I think for me, the most striking part of it was thinking from my standpoint, my world, being a police officer, and realizing that 600 peaceful people were walking over the top of this bridge, and what was waiting for them were police officers to stop them from protesting for not being able to vote. And the ensuing videos that I've watched and spent time going through in the book that I'm going through now, that part of it, I think, makes me sicker than the rest, because it is who we are. I mean, that's part of our history as police officers. And so when you look back and you wonder, why people think the way we do sometimes of us, those are not, it's 1965. Many of us in the room were alive when that stuff happened, and many African Americans were alive when that happened. So I think that's, for me, it was difficult to go through, but it still is, just because it is our history. But it is currently, makes me proud to realize That's not who we are today. We've done an incredible job of coming from a dark past to a very professional organization, professional jobs. I mean, we do an incredible job today, which kind of, I listened to Stan Archie just a little bit ago, and he talked about ignoring the noise and ignoring what people say about you, and I really wanted to do that. But based on what I saw in Alabama and knowing where we came from and knowing where we are today, I think I want to ignore that, but there's some things I think need to be said. To come up here and to say that we need to have body cams before we believe you is ridiculous. To put out words like blatant misconduct, that the person was restrained, that I don't support officer misconduct. Even after the second the video was released, it was clear that the author, Alicia Kennedy, had read this or watched it. Accountability of officers, police misconduct, brutality, negligence, and tarnish our reputation were the words used. What she didn't say was, I want our officers to have due process. What she didn't say was that women shouldn't be fighting in a public place. What she didn't say was, I'm glad the officers ended the fight with a slap instead of a taser or capstone or rushing somebody or secondary punches or whatever could have happened. The other thing she didn't say was, I wish we'd find out how that other victim was who was getting her hair yanked out. We earned 1965. We've bore the sins of our fathers. We've earned better. The men and women that do this job should have at least had somebody from the city council or somebody say something better than what they were saying the day after. And it frustrates me. I've got a lot more words to say at some point, but this probably isn't the forum. But to come up here and not say I'm sorry is probably the most striking thing. And I think that's disingenuous at best. Lastly, I'll say this. We work our butts off. This lodge works hard to create a relationship with the community, and to have it devastated by somebody who's supposed to stand up and be representative of the community makes no sense. We're starting up our second year of our school activities where we pay for dinners for families. We do counseling. We bring in presenters every single week. We've got our FOP Cops and Kids program starting back up. We're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars on urban kids that cannot afford Christmas. We adopt hundreds of foster care children who get forgotten every single year because people don't get patted on the back for doing it. You don't get videos of giving gifts to foster kids because they're protected. They're the ones that get forgotten in this. The tens of thousands of dollars, the hours and hours and hours that we spend with the community get shade thrown at it when people decide that they want to ignore what we actually do right and give us an opportunity to at least review things before we get on social media and blast us. That's all I've got, I think. Anything else, sirs?
Thank you. Thank you. I will say that, Brad, I completely understand that perspective, and many of the points were embodied in my own. At the same time, I value the fact that we're having conversations today we didn't have in 1965. And sometimes it goes too far any one direction. The police, on occasion, may go too far as a general body, and sometimes the criticism may go too far. But I certainly value the conversation, and I know you do as well. And the consciousness that we carry today in the execution of our job that we didn't carry 50 years ago. So I thank you for what you do, and I thank you for your support for your men and women. You're doing what you ought to do.
Let me add something. I appreciate those comments. I think they're well said. And I want to add something else on a personal nature, although I don't say much of it or talk about it very often. I understand on people on that trip, and that it was enlightening and in some ways depressing, and in some ways came out with a positive idea of because we have grown so far. I don't say this very often. I went to Selma, Alabama in college the week after Bloody Sunday.
to protest. And we've come a long way since then. It's still very emotional for me to think about what I went through, which was nothing compared to what those people went through, believe me. But the fact that our country has come so far, our department, the police have come so far is really good. Anyway, I'll shut up.
Okay. Absent any other comment, Colonel Lewis.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I will refer you to tab C in your books for the items relative to the Executive Services Bureau. First item is item A, budget transfers for fiscal year 2018-19. We are requesting the following transfer of appropriations. From the general fund, we need to move appropriations in the amount of $69,142 within personal services for the tow lot charge-out position. And by way of explanation, this is a non-sworn position that we've had assigned at East Patrol Division for years. This member serves truly as a resident expert on stolen auto investigations and focuses a great deal on researching and tracking the vehicles that come into our tow lot. This position has been funded by the city for many, many years. We now need to move the appropriations from the East Patrol Division to the Property Crimes Division. This is simply a housekeeping measure as a result of a recent reorganizational change that moved our Property Crimes Division and the elements that fall under it from the Patrol Bureau umbrella to the Investigations Bureau umbrella. The second part of our budget transfers is within the Police Grants Fund. We are requesting the transfer of $760 from personal services and $47,200 from commodities, totaling $47,960, and moving these funds as follows: $9,160 to contractual services and $38,800 to capital outlay, again totaling the $47,960. Request favorable consideration and approval.
Is there a motion to approve these transfers?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Shern. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tolbert. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Request passes.
Thank you. Now refer you to item B. This is a request for approval for the following adjustments to appropriations in a couple of our special revenue accounts. Within our Special Services Fund, we are asking to move $10,000 from the background check line item for this to be used for office equipment. And secondly, from within our Expendable Trust Fund, we're transferring $50,000 from the computer equipment line item to be used for the renewal of software subscription and maintenance. This is an item that is related to item D that you will see in your book in just a moment on the purchase of the ETAC or the items for the ETAC board. So once again, request your favorable consideration and approval.
Is there a motion for the request?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wagner, second.
Second.
By Commissioner Shern. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Request passes.
Thank you. Item C is the acceptance of the 2018 MoWin Award. The department recently received the 2018 Missouri Western Interdiction in Narcotics, or if you will, the acronym of MoWin, Task Force Subaward from the Missouri Department of Public Safety in the amount of $781,302.87. From that amount, $482,298.26 are federal funds, and $299,004.61 are from the state. The subaward period runs from July 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2019. This funding provides for personnel, overtime, and vehicle leases. This is the 21st year we've received this award. Recommend approval for acceptance in the total amount of $781,302.87.
So moved.
Motion for acceptance.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Tolbert, second.
Second.
Commissioner Shuren, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Request passes.
Thank you. I'll refer you to item D. This is the Forensic Logic CopLink product request. I've got quite a bit of detail to explain this item to you, and then obviously be happy to take questions if there are any. Kansas City Police Department is a partner with the Metro Kansas City Emerging Threat Analysis Capability Group called ETAC. Additionally, the KCPD serves and has for years as the pass-through or the holder, if you will, of the ETAC funds. Each cooperating agency contributes to the fund that is held and managed by KCPD. These monies are used for purchases such as the items we are discussing today. ETAC is a part of the Kansas City Urban Area Security Initiative and was formed back in 2008 under now retired Chief Jim Corwin from our department and retired Chief John Douglas from the Overland Park Police Department. At its very core, ETAC was formed due to the need for interagency sharing of intelligence and information and cooperation in fighting criminals, lawbreakers, if you will, that are mobile within our metro area. Since its infancy, ETAC has utilized the Forensic Logic CopLink software as a component for providing threat analysis in a cross-jurisdictional manner throughout the Kansas City metro area. It is now time to renew that subscription service agreement with Forensic Logic for their CopLink product. This agreement, in the amount of $152,247, covers the dates of August 1st, 2018 through July 31st, 2019. This expenditure has been approved by the ETAC board. Additionally, the ETAC board approved a second expenditure in the amount of $66,620 for CopLink data integration services, which is used to integrate license plate reader data. This makes the total expenditure of the two purchases $218,867. Again, KCPD serves simply as the holder or the pass-through of these funds. The Office of General Counsel has reviewed these documents and offers no objections. Recommend approval as detailed for the total amount of $218,867.
Motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Wagner, second by Commissioner Tolbert. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Request passes. Roger.
Thank you. The next item is item E. This is a renewal of our Shot Spotter subscription services. I'm not going to say that more than once, but this is a request to renew our Shot Spotter agreement, if you will, with SST for the period of October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2019. The cost of the renewal is $164,010, and this is a budgeted item. Recommend approval.
Can you give some background what the Shot Spotter is, Roger?
Shot Spotter is a service, gunshot detection. Yeah, gunshot detection system. That was the word system I was grasping for. A system where these devices are strategically placed throughout certain areas of our city, and we have the ability to respond to those gunshots on a much quicker and more
To
rapid
detection
basis.
and location
Correct.
service, right?
I'd say detection and reporting. So it detects it and then immediately notifies our dispatch without any intermediate. Goes there within 30 seconds.
Within how close to the shot?
Well, sometimes it'll pinpoint, say exactly, or say within 3 feet, or sometimes it'll say within 10 feet. It just depends.
It'll tell the officers if it occurred at the front of the residence or the back of the residence.
Yeah, how many shots? It will indicate each one.
Okay. Your motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wagner,
Second.
second by Commissioner Shuren. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Request passes.
Thank you. Next item is item F. This is a request for acceptance of the 2018 MICSAP Award The department received recent notification of a grant award from the Missouri Department of Transportation for the Motor Carrier Safety Assistance Program, or MCSAP, in the amount of $1,268,657.58. 85% of these funds, which totals $1,078,358.94, are federal funds, and 15%, or $190,298.64, are local match funds. The award period is October 1st, 2017 through September 30th, 2019. The funding disbursement began on July 1st of this year. These funds cover personnel, overtime, equipment, and travel and training costs for our commercial vehicle inspection section officers that operate within our traffic division. These are the officers who typically are engaged in the commercial vehicle, or the big truck, if you will, enforcement efforts on our highways and freeways throughout the city. This is the 22nd year for the department to receive these funds. This item has been reviewed by the Office of General Counsel. They offer no objections. Recommend approval for the acceptance in the amount of $1,268,657.58.
Let me ask a question. When you say local match of $190,000, does that money we already have budgeted, or is that's not new money from the city, but local, you're talking about our department's
That is
budget?
correct. It was already anticipated. It was already budgeted.
I have a question on that as well. Inside that, there is, in number 25, says any law enforcement agency receiving an MCSAP contract must agree to develop and have on file a racial profiling policy and report that to the Missouri Office of Attorney General. So is there a racial profiling component that has been developed?
There is, and it has been in place for many years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a copy of it as well.
Okay.
I think we all would. I move to accept.
Yes.
Motion to accept, Commissioner
Second.
Sherman. Second by Commissioner Tolbert. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Request for approval passes.
Thank you. The next item is item G. This is the acceptance of the 2018-2019 Traffic Services Grant Awards. Once again, the department recently received notice of a total of 6 grant awards from the Missouri Department of Transportation in the overall amount of $638,772.50. The award period is from October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2019. These are federal funds, and there is no local match requirement at this time. The award for the full-time DWI officer may require a partial match in subsequent years. The amount for this part of the award is $180,272.50. This is the first year the Department of Transportation has funded us for a full-time DWI unit officer. These contracts provide funding for overtime training and equipment to increase compliance with traffic laws and reduce traffic fatalities. We have been receiving related grant funds from MoDOT since 1982 for the last 36 years. The Office of General Counsel has reviewed these contracts and offers no objections. Recommend approval for acceptance in the total amount of $638,772.50.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Tolbert. There's a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wagner. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Request passes.
Thank you. I now have a special request. At your seats, at your dais, are 2 additional add-on items that were an oversight on my part. My apologies to you that they did not get on the agenda and that the copies did not get into the books in advance of the meeting today. They are both renewal items for contracts. Had they been new contracts, I wouldn't have asked you to do this on such short notice, but I appreciate your willingness to do so. So the first add-on item is the renewal of the automotive Tires contract with State Avenue Tire and Auto. On September 12, 2017, the board approved the award of a one-year contract with State Avenue Tire and Auto for our inventory of automotive tires from bid number 2017-12, with an option to renew for 3 additional one-year periods. The original contract period runs through September 30th, 2018. That's why we were up against that date, and my apologies once again. If approved, the second-year contract will run from October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2019. The only price increase for the second-year contract will be a 50-cent upcharge on scrap tire removal that went from $2 to $2.50 per tire. All the other tire prices remain the same. The projected expenditure for this renewal is $153,830.25. Request and recommend approval.
Is there a motion for approval? Moved by Commissioner Shuren,
Second.
second by Commissioner Tolbert. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Got your tires, Roger.
Thank you so much. Now if we can get some uniform trousers, that's the second add-on item. This, again, is a renewal of a contract with Gall's Uniform. On the same date last year, September 12th, the board approved the award of a one-year contract with Gall's Incorporated to supply our inventory of police uniforms from bid number 2017-2, with an option to renew for 3 additional one-year periods. The original contract period runs through September 30th, 2018. If approved, this second-year contract will run from October 1st of this year through September 30th of next year. The price increase for the second-year contract will be 2.12% from last year's pricing. That's an anticipated increase over the year of $9,270. The overall anticipated expenditure for the new contract will be $438,067.79 based on historical contract quantities. Once again, request and recommend approval.
Gall's I guess where we were buying uniforms from when I started in 1990.
We have been using them for years. They've changed names a couple of times. They experienced actually a fire in the spring of this year, and they just are almost ready to open up their new facility in North Kansas City once again.
Right.
That is going to be a better location for them, and frankly, a better location for us and our officers, because they will have off-street parking, and they also will have the ability to keep more items in stock, and the service to us will be better. So,
Was that, I noticed just looking back, last year there was a 1.62% increase overall, and this year is a 2.1. Is there anything about that increase, looking back from a broader sample size? Is there any concern you have, Roger, with respect to that increase?
no, I think that's pretty much in line. I would anticipate probably with 2 years in a row of there being an increase, I would anticipate that perhaps that will be leveling off.
Is there a motion for approval of the request?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wagner,
Second.
second by Commissioner Tolbert. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Request passes.
Thank you, Commissioners, and again, once again, especially for taking on the 2 additional add-on items. Those are all of my approval items. I do have a very brief communications unit update. Total calls into the communications unit once again decreased this year, both on the 911 calls and the administrative calls. The 911 time call in queue stayed steady with the same month, with last month at 23 seconds. It's still a lesser hold time than we experienced during the month of August last year, compared to 26 seconds last year. We currently have staffing is at 95. We are down 11. We had a class of call takers that started on September 4th. There are 5 in that class. So Colonel Oakman and his staff and HR continue to process potential members for us, and we're constantly looking to increase those numbers. But
We're net 6 down after the.
that's correct. But we're making some headway. So that concludes my communications unit update, unless there are some questions.
Any questions for Colonel Lewis from the board? Okay. Colonel Kuehl.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Point you to tab D, which is where we'll be able to stay today. We do not have any consent agenda, so there's no policies for your approval today. Just a quick overview. We had the 163rd entrant officer class graduated on September 6th, and I hear them out there trying to navigate the new landscape of the real world from the training environment, which is always interesting to listen to. Our 164th entrant class is going well. They're slotted to graduate January 19th. And we actually have the 165th class that's going to be starting October 15th. And as always, I want to give a shout out to Deputy Chief Oakman and the Human Resources folks. It's a lot of work to vet all those folks and get them up there. And we're looking forward to that new class starting. So if you don't have any specific questions about the basic training class summary, I just wanted to point out a couple of things, and it piggybacks a little bit on the thread that seems to have been what we've been discussing today. But prior to that, I want to let you know we got some bicycles donated, and we got those passed out to the PAL kids. We also had great recruiting, and football practices started, and we actually have 2 teams this year, which is a great level of participation, better than we've had in the past, not due to, in any small part, to the efforts of our PAL folks to go out there and recruit kids for the teams. The other thing I wanted to touch base on, and it piggybacks on the simulation exercise that we had up at the academy with exposing citizens to some of our operations. We currently have in place a new session of our Citizen Police Academy. It started on the 4th of September. It's an 11-week program every Tuesday from 6 to 9, and we have waiting lists. Angela McCune and the crew up there at the academy do an incredible job putting that together. And again, it's about exposing citizens to the operations of our department. Literally, they'll have at least 3, if not 3 to 5, different elements each week that come and talk to them, explain what we do, answer questions. I try to go as many Tuesdays as I can, and I stick around for the breaks, and it's amazing the revelations that people share with having an experience. Then they actually will go out to the helicopter unit where we'll have the robots, and we'll have K9, and we'll have mounted patrol, and it's an incredible exposure. And it is amazing to look at the delta that exists, because we take it for granted because we do it every day. But when you get citizens that participate and you get to interact with them and you see how much they learn that we take for granted, it's very, very rewarding. And we have waiting lists for people, and we do this numerous times a year. And I think they're just, it kind of fit well, dovetailed nicely into our conversation. And a shout out to the academy staff. The chief already did it. I'm going to piggyback on that for putting together that, the devil always lies in the details, and the logistics that go into a day that comes off like the one we had up there. Credit to the academy staff for doing that. So I just wanted to share that we continue this outreach and this education and trying to bridge the gap between the community and the police department. I'm very proud of all that they do up there.
One comment, your comments raised a thought in my head that I think deserves some public reflection, and that is the role that the academy and our training curriculum and personnel play in the overall conduct of our department. And by that I mean, we, the board, do not expect that this department is going to play error-free baseball. What I do expect, and I want there to be no misunderstanding about, when we do make mistakes, or when others around us make mistakes, and Councilwoman Kennedy talked about money that's paid out, where sometimes it's difficult to discern whether mistakes have been made, but nevertheless, events have given rise to complex problems or issues, some declared as problems, is how that works its way into our training environment. So that when we do make mistakes, that we as a department are endeavoring to use our processes and our system and our organization in a way to ensure that doesn't happen again, doesn't repeat itself. Because sometimes things just arise, issues arise in the field that you can't anticipate in the training environment. And I just want, I want the public to know, and if you have any comment about it, I encourage it, but that there is continuity in the department when issues do arise that reflect mistake or uncertainty, that there's communication with the training department so that we're putting that into our curriculum and to address it at that early stage to try to be a proactive department.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, it really mimics one of my 90-10 rules. All this one's a 10-90 rule that, you know, life is 10% what happens, not 10% what happens to you, 90% how you respond to it. And it's no different with what we see and what goes on in the world. And there's regular communication. We talk to the Patrol Bureau all the time. We have incidents come up. We make adjustments in the training immediately and quickly. We create training scenarios, whether it be video, whether it be a memorandum, whatever it needs to be responsive. And there's no delay. It's an ongoing thing. We have discussions every Monday, but they're not even held for every Monday. If something happens Tuesday afternoon after our Monday morning briefing, then we'll talk about it and deal with it Tuesday. So it's everything really, while the training curriculum is set and while we adhere to the post standards, we have a whole lot that stays in light pencil, because we may need to make adjustments and we may need to make, and it's a constant process of continuous improvement. I did not realize it until I was embedded up there and exposed to it, how much that process of continuous improvement goes on all the time. And a lot of it happens behind the scenes. Because if you get to something quickly enough and you deal with it quickly enough, the thing about the thing is it doesn't become a thing, because you're aware of it and you take the appropriate action based on that awareness before it even becomes an issue. And I think that happens better here than any other of the training departments I've been exposed to, and I would put this place up against anybody. Thank you.
I want to congratulate you and Deputy Chief Oakman. It looks like for the 164th officer class, the minority, or at least non-white, is 18%, which is, it's not enough, but it's way up from where it's been. And I think that is a result of the hard work you all are doing in recruiting. And I congratulate you on that. Keep it up.
I think the chief pressed hard for everyone to be recruiters, that we can't rely on just the ones in HR, and I think everybody has stepped up, and Carl's shop and everybody has really done a good job. And it's a challenge, but we're up for it.
And I appreciate your comments about the training environment, and it ties directly into what Sergeant Lemon was talking about as well. You know, life can be a cruel teacher. We sometimes it's witting participants. You know, the real offense is to ignore its lessons.
Agreed.
So I'm glad to hear that you're conscious of that and understand the importance that it plays.
100%. That's all I have, unless you had any other questions.
Colonel Bosworth.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My information's under tab E in your books, also the blue sheets that should have been handed out. To date, in 2018, we've had 91 homicides. That's compared to 110 in 2017. And as you can see, 85 in 2016, 71 in 2015, and 55 in 2014.
I have a little bit of a hard time hearing you. That may be just me, but.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, just speaking to the mic, Senator.
I like that. Back to the homicide numbers just real quick. 91 so far in 2018 and 110 compared to 110 last year. We had 49 shooting victims in this year compared to, I believe it was 52 in 2017, so it's just a slight decrease. We did have 20 homicides in the month of August this year, which is relatively high. As of September 13th of this year, we've had 313 shooting victims, and that's compared to 368 in 2017. So those are down quite a bit as well. Our drive-by shooting numbers are down just a little bit. We've had 302 year to date, compared to 323. In August, there were 45 drive-by shootings that were reported, and that's compared to 36 in 2017. Narcotics and Vice, if you look under your Narcotics and Vice tab, you can see the Patrol Bureau possession cases continue to increase. They're up by 74% compared to last year. We are still seeing a large amount of methamphetamine coming through. That's up 54%.
Let me pause you right there. As I noticed that, you just mentioned the Patrol Bureau. Seems like a pretty substantial increase, and didn't know, again, whether that was an episodic thing, or does that reflect some enforcement trend? You know,
I'd have to defer a little bit to Deputy Chief Lanningham on that, but we have worked several different areas. Our impact squads are very active for patrol. They work our problem areas in conjunction with NOVA. I think that's part of it, because some of that is drug-related. These are cases that are handled by the DEU administrative squad. So if a patrol officer pulls somebody over and they have narcotics on them, usually it's followed up by the DEU admin squad, and these are the number of cases that they handle. So that's why, that's the comparison I have.
Well, it's one thing when you see a month compared to the month prior year. Sometimes it's just an event, a search warrant, a big seizure that accounts for but this is 864 arrests versus 497 arrests. That's a lot. So
our self-initiated activity is going up as our calls for service, as we're handling them in a better fashion because our personnel are coming up. Then that frees up some more time. That plus the impact squads. We're just with the crime meetings every week. We know who our targets are, and we go out there and we work them. They're working really hard.
that's just a notable and commendable increase in something that is, again, larger than in a seizure or an incident. That indicates a longer trend, and so I applaud it. You also mentioned about the methamphetamines, and I noticed that looked like in August 2018, anyway, there was a large seizure versus August 2017. Is that, is that episodic, or are we seeing a resurgence? I mean, methamphetamine has always been an issue, but
It's not one big takeoff. It's several medium-sized takeoffs, usually through our interdiction squad. That's where we've got that. I think one was 15 pounds. Another one was like 11. So it's been several interdiction efforts.
good. Okay, David, sorry.
That's okay. Marijuana recovered, it's still going up 205%. Once again, there's not really a single seizure to talk about that was huge. It's several different ones. Interdiction's been hitting it pretty hard. You just approved the MOIN Task Force Award. We have Jackson County, Clay County, Platte County, and our detectives working together every day, doing interdiction activities and other undercover investigations involving drugs. So it's a large pool of people to pick from and to use to combat the drug problem here. Heroin is down, and it continues to be down. Don't know if it's because our interdiction efforts are so good that they're maybe going around Kansas City now as a hub. I just don't know.
Or is it, I mean, it's you've got X number of drug pushers, and they're pushing Y or they're pushing Z. And if your methamphetamines are up and your heroin's down, I mean, is there some...
And meth, as I mentioned before, meth continues to be our number one problem. I think there's a lot of violence associated with the marijuana business in town, more so than meth, but meth is our number one narcotic problem by far. Fentanyl, we recovered over 5 pounds of fentanyl at one of the transportation hubs. That's the first fentanyl we've seen so far this year, and it's a significant amount. Search warrants are up as well, 332 compared to 272 of last year, which is great. I can talk a little bit more about the narcotics purchases in closed session. I'd like to discuss that briefly with you. And then firearms recovered for the entire department is 1,467 compared to 1,351 from last year, and those numbers are accurate.
How many pills are in 5 pounds of fentanyl?
Oh, man. Roughly. I have no idea. Anybody take a guess? Yeah. Now, we have recovered fentanyl in the past, like last year, but it was usually mixed with something, methamphetamine or opiate pills. It's cheaper, easier to cut, and they add that normally to the other opiates. And then you should have a copy of our missing persons policy and procedure up there. I was asked to have that for you. And I also have Sergeant Ben Caldwell here from Missing Persons Cold Case Squad. Are there any detailed questions you have?
Yeah, I raised that issue because of there was some press on it. It just concerned me of what we're doing, what the policy is. I understand the one incident that comes to mind that the dispatcher, the person that received the question absolutely followed procedure and policy, and I have no question about that. I just had some concerns about when we decide someone, that we're going to look for someone, or when we decide that even if we're not going to actively look for someone, I guess here's my question. I have a tough time articulating this, Chief, but if someone comes in and claims that a member of their family or friend is missing, what is the downside for us of having any description of that out? So just in case we come across that person, the missing person, we can find them, we can say something. Is that over?
That would be very taxing if you're talking about every single person that came through the door that we took a report and we put that on a detective. Frankly, we wouldn't have the manpower for that as it's structured now. That's why we have parameters around it. I think it would be really helpful if you would entertain Sergeant Caldwell coming up
Sure.
and just briefly talking about the work that the unit does. I'm confident we have a strong policy, but maybe after you hear from him,
Okay,
that would
sure.
be better.
Sure.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Sergeant Caldwell from the Missing Persons Cold Case Squad. Happy to answer any questions you have. I understand the Commissioner was kind of asking about our parameters. As it stands right now, I just going to give you a few numbers right quick. In 2017, we took 1,153 missing persons reports. As of today, for the calendar year 2018, we're already at 756, and that's using the parameters we have here. I'm pretty liberal in the application of this. I mean, there are some times where someone can articulate why they think someone's in danger, and it might not necessarily fit this policy exactly, but I'm still inclined to say, let's go ahead and enter them as a missing person in the computer. Let's take that missing person report. I'm very liberal in the application of it, and I'm actually very aggressive in the way that we handle our missing persons cases. We work them to the end. We work them very aggressively. We do not consider manpower, finances, or anything else in that matter when it comes to someone reported as being missing. If we have reason to believe that they're endangered, this department, my squads, go do everything we can to bring them home one way or another. Very, very committed to that cause. The parameters are in place not only due to manpower issues, but we have to delicately decide right to privacy, really, because any adult, unless they have a reason, like outlined here, medical conditions or reasons like that, that they're endangered by their missing, a person of reasonable prudence that doesn't have mental or physical ailments or something that would cause them to be endangered, they have a right to privacy. And so we have to delicately take every one of these calls that come in and kind of weigh them out. Is this a person that's missing, or is this a person that wants to be alone? And there's oftentimes we found the person and they kind of yell at me about, hey, I wanted to disappear for a while. I wanted to be away from my family. I had an argument with my brother, my sister, whatever the case was. And I say, well, sorry for the inconvenience, but I'm glad to hear that you're okay. So, we just kind of do the best we can with it and apply the policy and try to weigh those considerations of privacy.
Sergeant, first place, let me make sure you understand this is my comments or questions. Certainly no criticism of you or of the department or any. I know you do a tough job, and I appreciate it. Explain to me when someone, if you do take a report of a missing person, what do you do with it? Do the patrol officers get that information? Is there some way that they're driving along and see somebody, they could possibly recognize that person as a missing person, or is that just so far so much more difficult compared to everything else they're doing that just isn't reality?
Correct. And because of just the sheer number of missing persons that come in every day, we take each case, we weigh them on their own merit. And if some people will put the parameters for a missing persons report, and we'll take that report and we'll enter them immediately into all of our local databases through national and state, local, regional databases as a missing person, so that if anyone has contact with them law enforcement-wise, they're going to know that they're a missing person, they're going to contact us. There are other persons, as the call comes in, we can articulate, hey, this person's endangered, be it because of a medical issue, a mental issue, suicidal ideologies, age, because they're just too young to care for themselves. And those persons are ones we filter through and we push out through our media unit. We have a very good working relationship with our media unit. And those are the ones that you're going to see on our department Facebook page, Instagram. Those are the ones we're going to see on the local news, because we're requesting local media get involved and push this information out at someone that is in dire straits that we have to find right now. And so those are the cases that you're hearing about. We just can't do it for everyone. There's just too many. We have to kind of treat it like an Amber Alert situation, and we have to be prudent in our application of that and disseminating that to the public. We want to be effective, and right now it's very effective because we're stringent in our standards. And so that's the ones we push out to the media like that. Those are the ones that you see we're saying this is emergent and we need the public's assistance in this. But there's just too many to push out daily to the officers.
Okay. Tells me what I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
I can tell you, Commissioner, having worked dog watch and homicide, that every Friday and Saturday night about 3:30 or 4, you're going to get a call that someone's missing and hasn't shown up. It just happens. Everyone calls here when someone doesn't show up at home. And I think as been articulated, we want to be involved in if it's a criminal matter or if there's some sort of danger to the person. Otherwise, if they don't want to go home, it's not a police matter. And that's a hard thing. But
That's a hard thing to discern.
yeah, it is. And I wanted you to have confidence that I think our policy is strong and it helps us make that decision.
So when a person is found and they don't want to be involved with their family, is their family then informed of that, or are they just kind of left?
The family is informed that they've been located. The family is not told where they're at because of that right to privacy. So we're going to call them and say, we found your loved one, they're okay. But right now, they want some time to be left alone.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Anything else?
Yeah, the only other thing I had is, due to a fishing trip, myself and Deputy Chief Lanningham were fortunate enough to meet with Attorney General Sessions last Thursday with a group of sheriffs, prosecutors, Very interested in our crime problems, what we needed as far as more personnel, more funding. Sergeant Brad Lemon was there as well. Good meeting. I get to meet with him again next Monday in Birmingham, Alabama for the Public Safety Partnership meeting. It's just getting started, but we're going to be involved with that. So just wanted to mention that.
Good, thank you. Yeah.
The U.S. Attorney's Office has expressed great interest in helping in our violent crime issue and has come up with a Project Safe Neighborhood and a Public Safety Partnership, two programs that they have out that we've been invested in. It looks like those are really going to kick off in a high speed, and that's part of Deputy Chief Bosworth's trip down there is our participation in that. So I look forward to some good things coming from these partnerships that we're about to embark on.
Okay, good, thank you. Colonel Oakman.
Good morning. My items for the Administration Bureau is under tab F. And I have the Regional Crime Lab monthly stats as well as the Human Resources personnel summary. If you don't have any questions on either of those items, I will go into my brief.
Carl, what were the items again?
The Regional Crime Lab monthly statistics and the Human Resources personnel summary.
No, the crime lab statistics look pretty good. Again, I agree with Commissioner Sherman was just, when you were talking, leaned over to me to say they were looking pretty good. Is there going to, with the issues that we've been dealing with the warehouse, and I know that that's been taxing our lab folks considerably, is there anticipation that that's going to affect the operations of our lab in terms of our numbers and our
At this
performance
point,
there?
At this point, not with the initial. We did use lab staff initially, but we're getting back to confining that mainly to the property and evidence employees. But I'm going to give a update on that in closed session.
Okay. So, I don't have any more questions unless anyone else has more questions about the lab statistics or the personnel.
And update, recruiting update. First of all, our career section of our website with the employment section has been updated. There was just a few issues with the public kind of navigating from different areas of the website, as well as the mobile device portion needed some upgrading. So now the mobile site is fully functioning, as well as the main site, and that's all part of our overall design of a new website. But we're online with the career portion has been done and completed. So we're moving forward with the entire website. So under the career section, that's so one, you can now apply from your mobile phone. If you wanted to apply for a job, that's up and running. And one thing of note, so far since February, since we put in the online application, we've received 2,210 applications since February, which has also created another problem. Sometimes you can have a good problem, and that is having to be able to process the large amount of applications that are coming through for all jobs on the KCPD. One thing that we've put in place here last week is a special task force, and I want to thank Colonel Bosworth for allowing us to use 5 of his detectives to help with backgrounds just for a 30-day period to get caught up, as well as Internal Affairs, which is doing an excellent job. But with the sheer number of applications that are coming in, we just needed to catch up on some backlog. And regarding our October class, which we're working on, we have a class starting October 15th. We're targeting 43 for that class. So far, we have 17 confirmed, but when it comes to the academy classes, the last week to 2 weeks is when you have a lot of job offers that we give usually the last 2 weeks. So you have the psychological and physical that's still waiting to be done, and you have to schedule them in those slots. So we have most of October and end of September scheduled. And so far, the breakdown on this class, we have one of the 17, we have one black male, one black female, one Indian male, one white female, and 13 white males. But we also have 3 white females, 3 black males, and 4 Hispanic males that are in the process of getting confirmed in that process for that next class. And as I mentioned, we still have 67 backgrounds that are in the background process for LE. And those are part of the process from the July testing, and we do have some diversity in that group. We have that are still in the process. We have 15 black males, 4 black females, 12 Hispanic males, and 2 Hispanic females that is in that group. And moving on to communications, we have currently 34 applicants in the process for communications that we're going through the background process. So as you can see, with that backlog in this task force, they're going to be able to help us get those backgrounds completed, so then we can get internal affairs back into a amount of applications that they can handle accordingly based on their staffing. And also, I want to also announce we do have a new recruiter/applicant processor. This is in addition to the other recruiter applicant processor. So we have 2, and her name is Amber Hoffman, and that's going to help us do some other areas in the area of recruiting. So a lot of what we're seeing has been, we've put in place in November and December. We're just now starting to see some of the results of some of these process changes. So we just ask that you be patient, and you're going to see the results. We're already seeing them. So it's a monthly thing you're going to see as these new processes come into place, and a lot of changes. Because one thing that we've done is, as well as having everyone be a recruiter, which was one of the chief's initiatives with the commanders and the command staff. And we're not just saying that, but we're actually holding them accountable. So we're getting lists to those commanders that, okay, who have you contacted? Have you contacted your school? So, and a lot of them are really excited to do it. They feel a part of the whole recruiting process, and that's made a big difference, as well as now addressing those younger 16, 17, 18-year-olds that historically I think we've kind of just said, okay, they can't do us any good right now because they're not 21. We need to focus on this group. And over the years, you start losing that group because they go and do other things, because we want them to realize a big part of it is just education on what this job offers. This is letting them understand that the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department is a welcoming organization regardless of your background and where you come from. You can be a police officer. It's just amazing how many people we talked to who felt that there was no way that they could be a police officer. And I'm not talking about criminal background or things in their background, just in general. They just didn't think that our organization was a welcoming place. But they've never actually talked to anyone from our organization. And once they talk to us, they realize that this is an excellent place to start a career, whether it's law enforcement or call taking. So those are some of the things that we're doing from the recruiting standpoint. And the big difference that we've seen is just the staff being welcoming and engaging to those people that are applying for positions.
Continue to applaud you for that, Carl, and it's a huge thing. And you know, creating that accountability too, I think is important. But just the recognition that the role that all of our officers play, top to bottom, in the organization. You can be the recruiter or you can be an unrecruiter. Unrecruiters can sometimes really do a lot of damage to the folks that are out there trying to recruit. So it's a role that we all occupy. So again, the board's continued appreciation for that priority. Anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Okay, great. Colonel Lanningham.
Yes. I want to start out by thanking Brad for talking about our trip to Montgomery and Selma. It was a moving experience. At my age, I'm not usually uncomfortable in my own skin, but going through some of that stuff, I was uncomfortable. We talked to people, we met people. The Urban League had us all wear T-shirts that they gave us, and the ladies had white T-shirts, and they had the mathematical equal sign on them, and then in red, and then a big circle, and the guys had the same T-shirts in a different color. And so as our group moved through these different museums and venues, people would come up to us and ask us, what are you guys doing? What's with the T-shirt thing, you know? And so we got to tell a little bit of our story from Kansas City, and they were very interested that we would have put a group together and go down there and have that experience. Mm-hmm. So just the personal interaction with people that were going through the venues was very moving too. There were people down there, most of the people attending didn't look like me, mostly African American people attending, and they looked at us and they kind of, you could tell they didn't know whether they should approach us or not, but when they did, we started up conversation, and that was very interesting to me, and I thank you for the experience. And one of the books that we were given, Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson, he's an attorney and he mostly dealt with death row cases. It was a page turner. It's on the New York bestsellers list, so I've got it if you guys want to. Rick's reading it right now, but I'd be happy to loan it out. It's very good. Now I'll start out. My information is Section G. I want to tell you that the tactical response teams, so far in 2018, they have responded to 46 Operation 100s, and in 2017, they had responded to 32 by the end of August. So 46 compared to 32, so we're way ahead out there. Negotiated responses, we've had 2 of those in 2018 as opposed to none in 2017 to this point in that year. The monthly crime summary. We are total Part 1 violent crimes down 10% from 2017 compared to 2018. That's very good news. Homicides down 19%. Don't expect this next month because we know what's coming. We just haven't gotten those yet, so next month's going to be a different story, I'm afraid. Total Part 1 crimes down 4%, and the total Part 1 crimes down 6%. Next page, Group A offenses, homicides down 17%, sex offenses forcible down 13%, sex offenses non-forcible down 53%, kidnapping and abduction down 42%. So that, and then go down to total crimes against property down 5%. So we're really trending in the right direction. The next few pages, they're broken down by division, and unless you have any specific questions, I'm going to move through those to the median response times. That's that next graph that you'll come to. I'm happy to say, are under our goal for priority 10 calls. We are responding to them in 7.42 minutes, and that's way better than 2017. 2017 and 2016. And hopefully we'll just keep going down. We'll see. Priority 20 calls, we're above the goal. I don't really have an explanation for that. It's about a minute too long. In the inner city stations, in the next page, you can see that we hit that goal, the next 2 pages. But on the outlying stations, geography and manpower, we just don't meet that goal for the most part. North Patrol, Shoal Creek, and South Patrol. Kind of self-explanatory. I'll go on to the traffic summary. Department-wide traffic enforcement. Our tickets are up 20 to 25% year-to-date and month-to-month. So we're looking very good there. We're happy with those numbers. Citywide total crash statistics, we're up in crashes, and we're also up in citations. So I'm not sure that those citations seem to be making any difference, but we're going to keep writing them.
I noticed that. It doesn't seem to
No.
make any difference, does it?
No, I don't see a difference, sadly. High crash locations, about the same. We respond and do enforcement on those, and we write tickets, and those numbers are about the same.
I do notice, by the way, that, let me interrupt 1 second, that Bruce Watkins Drive, there's 3 of the top 10 high crash locations, and that's gone from a year ago where it was 6 of them, I think, 6 of the top 10. And I assume that's because of the increase in speed or whatever on part of it, and so it stopped some of the rear-end collisions.
Good.
I assume that would be it. But certainly, it's changed, because I do remember going through that a few years, 18 months ago. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
That's a good observation. Thank you.
It just went to someplace else.
Yes,
is what it was.
apparently. Top traffic complaints on the next page, page 6. And then parking control section enforcement. I'm so proud of these people. They have written, in the month of August, 3,846 tickets, and year-to-date, 22,380. They're working really hard, and we're looking for more of them to put out there as soon as we can.
Can I add?
Yeah.
Commissioners, I'd like to add to this. As we talked about increasing our parking control section, this is a piece of the pie of the parking's master, or the city's master plan for parking. And part of it was to get more people in the garages and to use the facilities that are out there that the city has built to help with parking. And so with these numbers, we've also had reports that those numbers are also increasing. So it's not just an enforcement piece. We're trying to get people to use the parking spaces that are provided for downtown and in the area that we're using enforcement, and that seems to be working. And we hope we'll watch those numbers and those trends, but I just wanted to point out this is just one piece of that pie of the overall master parking plan for the city.
I thought most of those citations were all outside my office, from the way I hear people complaining.
There's some at 18th and Vine, too, because we had some people complain down there to my office that we needed some more parking control enforcement, and of course, we go down there and we give the ticket to the person that complained because they were illegally parking. So you got to be careful what you ask for sometimes. DUI Wolfpack enforcement activity. We had 5 activities, and there was 124 department-wide DUI arrests. That's including city and state. And commercial vehicle enforcement activity, I wanted to highlight that. There's 7 officers and 1 sergeant, and they did 799 commercial vehicle inspections. That's an awful lot. So I'm really proud of those people. They work really hard. And they took 114 commercial vehicles out of service. Then turn the page, and the next 3 pages are August fatality summaries. That's way too many. We had 13 fatalities. 5 of those fatalities were wearing no seat belts. 2 were unknown. 2 were motorcycles. Those were some of the lowlights that I picked out of this information. If you have any questions about any of those, feel free. And then, males not wearing seatbelts, those are the two statistics that jump out on page 12 of the fatal crash statistics. Gotta have people wearing their seatbelts. Then on to the executive summary. We are down 6% in calls received from August of 2017 to August of 2018, and calls that officers were dispatched on are also down 2%. So our calls handled alternatively came up about 1,000. Unless you have any other questions on the executive summary or for me, that concludes my report.
Any further questions? Okay, the next agenda item is the private security officer regulations. It's been an issue that's come up from time to time, particularly at the board level, where individuals are appealing the denial of their private security office. That's ordinarily private security license, and that's at the board level. That's commonly in the unarmed position. As a consequence of that, and as the fact of those has consumed considerable time on the board and some degree of consternation, Commissioner Shuren has led the effort to try to identify some potential changes in the regulations which we control that would perhaps address some of the concerns of certain members of the board, and to try to address some of those issues that have come up from time to time. So we also have, from time to time, other issues that come up. The Yum Yum incident is obviously one of those. I know that was recently reported. Chief Smith, I know you are looking at that, reviewing that. I know that those wheels are in motion, so that may become before us at a subsequent time. But nevertheless, on that occasion, I had the opportunity, reference that incident, to meet with Tammy and Captain, I believe, Perez, in any event, to discuss that process and to get a better understanding of that process and how we approach it from a review and then from a discipline once issues arise. So out of all of that, it seems that Commissioner Shuren's suggestion, I accept, that we commit a small task force to look at specifically private security officer, the process and the appeals and the consequences and the discipline when we have investigations or issues. What efforts are we taking? Should we be taking? Are we doing it right? Or are there things we could be doing differently with respect to our enforcement, some of our proactive enforcement issues there? So I think all of that deserves some focused attention as opposed to episodic attention when it comes before the board. So I am asking that that be established, Chief. Commissioner Shuren will chair that group. And then, obviously, Tammy, I would like your participation in that. You've got a tremendous depth of understanding. It's like so many other things in life, when you try to apply a quote solution or pull a lever, you have some other consequential effect that you didn't anticipate, just because we don't have a degree of familiarity with that process and systems that would have alerted us. That's where really somebody like you comes in. So we value that institutional experience and wisdom, and I think that needs to be applied to looking at what we're doing and seeing if there's some things we could be doing more efficiently or more appropriately. So Commissioner Shern will chair that. I think, Tammy needs to be a part of that. And then, Chief, I would leave it to you to round that group out. But I would like to see that done, and then we can get a report back specific to the regulations that may be appropriate for being altered, but also the process more broadly, I think, is deserving of some review. So, Commissioner Shern, do you have any comment about that, or is that?
The problem with volunteering.
Yeah, right. So
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Look forward to working
Good.
with
So
whoever you put on it, however many chief you think should be on it, however many officers, Tammy and I.
I think immediately we're going to add some legal to this discussion, have Jenny or Jamie participate, and then we'll go from there.
I think that's important, and I also, generally speaking, think less is more. I think that would maybe be appropriate. So, is there anything further on that issue? Okay. I'll at least let you reach for your microphone, Jenny. Anything from the Office of General Counsel?
Nothing at this time.
Merrill, for the Office of Community Complaints, Director Bennigan, please.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
And not to put too fine a point on the matter concerning the Westport video, but I think that I have to take a moment just to clarify OCC's role in, I guess, in the review of the incidents of last weekend. First of all, OCC was made aware of the video Sunday morning, and so at that time, I notified other staff members to have them take a look at the video to begin just the process of having another set of eyeballs on the video other than myself. Also, in that whole process, I contacted Major Francisco to have a conversation with him to see what the department's position was in terms of moving forward with any type of review of the videotape, and also to clarify what the department's process would be as opposed to what OC, and it's already well established, but just to make sure that we had an understanding of what was going to happen from that point forward, so that there would not be a duplication of efforts regarding that video. You, as board members, were not notified by OCC in the event that a citizen complaint was filed with this office, because at some point there's a potential that you would be the reviewing body if there was some type of disciplinary action that would be taken against the officer at any time. At that point, we were not sure of any outcome of that kind. We didn't make any prejudgments to that effect, but still we did not notify you of that incident because, of course, at that time no complaint had been filed, so therefore we did not take any action to notify you of the incident from our perspective. Also, a comment was made that perhaps media outlets did not know about the existence of OCC. I find that somewhat hard to believe, since I've given interviews to pretty much all of the media outlets in this city at some point or another. But that being the case, we will make a concerted effort to reach out to all of the media outlets in this city to remind them of what OCC does, what our role is in the process of investigating complaints, to make sure that they understand that we are also a resource that can be contacted in these matters. Also, just wanted to state, just to back up what Colonel Kuehl was saying, OCC, during the investigation of community complaints, we also make notifications to the training unit and the academy whenever we see issues arise that may involve some need for additional training or review of some of the process that we have. So again, the process works in tandem, where if we see something, we notify the department vice versa. We have that type of symbiotic relationship in that regard. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I'll be instructing or presenting to the entrant officer class on matters of mediation, conciliation, and conflict de-escalation. So we also have a role in making sure that the department and its members are well aware of any training issues that we see with the Office of Community Complaints. I just wanted to take a moment just to clarify some of those issues, because oftentimes we exist kind of in that gray area where people don't always know what our role is in these situations, but we were well notified at all phases of what was going on in terms of that review and that investigation, and we received copies of the department's official statements from the media department that following Monday. so that we were able also to disseminate that position to anybody who contacted us with additional information. So, any questions?
May I add something? Sorry to keep interrupting or adding, but he's being a little humble. You know, most of this occurred on a Sunday, not on a Monday, and Merrill was all over it. And there was conversations going back and forth on, and that's what I mean by the professional in this department. No one said we're waiting. No one didn't take a phone call. I mean, it started right after it became known to us, and everyone started looking into it immediately. So I just want the board to have confidence that, you know, when something like this occurred, it got on. I mean, people jumped on it right away, doing what they should be doing, reviewing the videos, taking a look at things. Merrill was in touch with people. We were in touch with people. And I think that's how the process should work.
Right. Right. And we just have to be careful about taking positions and jumping to conclusions. That's why we don't issue any statement in any regard until we have all the facts. And being that an investigation had already been started by the department and there was a potential that we might also have some type of review, that's why we don't make official statements, because at that time we had one video, and so we were not in a position to make any type of statements in that regard. Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Merrill. Commissioner Wagner, is there anything from the audit committee? Any update?
No, nothing to update.
David?
No, thank you.
Anything from you? Commissioner Tolbert, anything further from you today? Okay. Commissioner Wagner?
Nothing.
Commissioner Shuren?
We had a couple donations, and I can't find them, but I wanted to thank the people that made them. But I can't find them. There we go. Oh, no. Yeah. So there was, Loretta Ferguson made a $3,600 donation to the police department for use in the canine section, and Mr. Roger Hill made a $500 donation for a Trail of Heroes memorial bench, and I want to thank them very much. And I want to comment that it looks like the homicide clearance rate is up very good, and I congratulate the department for where they are, where we are on that. That's just, I think it's like 73% or something. That's really a great number. And one other thing, by the way, in a call dispatcher, I happened to talk with somebody the other day who said that they had called in and how soon I asked them two questions. One, how long were you on hold, or did the call last? They said it was very quick. They had said faster than they had anticipated, and that the person who took the call was understanding and knew what was going on. And in fact, what this person had said was it was a carjacking, and then he said, well, wait a minute, they're not there anymore. They're not in the car anymore. I talked them out of it and whatever. This guy got in the car with whoever was taking the car and talked him out of doing it. And bottom line was that the dispatcher or call taker was calmed down after she heard call a carjacking, and then he was very pleased with the way it was all handled. So I just wanted to pass that on. Okay, I'll shut up.
If there's nothing further, is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Shuren, second by Commissioner Tolbert. Garrett, aye.
Sure and I.
Wagner, aye.
Tolbert, aye.